Hey everyone, and welcome to a One Green Things interactive workshop. Tonight, we're excited to talk about spring cleaning and avoiding fast fashion. Next slide, please. Before we get started, I just want to give you an outline of where we're headed. We're going to talk about eco-anxiety, what it is, our approach to climate action, the service superpower assessment. For those of you who have seen these workshops before online, you can just fast forward to where we get into tackling spring cleaning and ways to avoid fast fashion. Next slide, please. So first, eco-anxiety is defined as the chronic fear of environmental doom by the American Psychological Association. Other terms that are used to describe this are solastalgia, climate anxiety, eco-grief, climate grief. But more and more young people especially are concerned about the future that we're leaving them. And our approach at One Green Thing starts at the intersection of the climate crisis and mental health. And our mission is to tackle eco-anxiety through joyful daily action that leads to culture change for policy solution. So action abates anxiety, connection lessens loneliness, and policy scales solution. Next slide, please. I realized through my own conversations with my kids that even with 25 years experience in environmental service and environmental policy, that more people, not only do we need to research and think about the mental health impacts of the climate crisis, but more people needed to see themselves in the movement. So I created the Service Superpower Assessment, which I encourage you all to check out. It's at onegreenthing.org. I'll just quickly describe what the 7 different service superpowers are. And the reason I developed this is that people are more likely to change their behavior if they identify as the type of person who would sustain that behavior. So here are the 7 different service superpower profiles so you can find your role in climate action. The first is the adventurer. This is the person who embraces the physicality of the outdoors. The second is the beacon, which speaks truth to justice and who speaks truth to power and is also always about social justice. Then we have the influencer that's all about connecting change makers to each other, people. Then we have the philanthropist that focuses on serving others through their donating time, resources, and really connecting folks. Then we have the sage, which is focused on the spiritual connection to nature. And then there is the spark, who's kind of like the +1 or the cheerleader, the person who is happy to go with you on that nature walk, volunteer in the community garden, or read a book or watch a documentary with you. And then finally, we have the walk, which I am, which is focused on the data and the policy and the science. And they're very helpful in translating these climate solutions in ways that we can all understand. But the idea is, how do you show up in service? And these are unique ways for you to get involved in the movement. So now we're going to dive into the content of the workshop, which is spring cleaning. And we can go to the next slide. So as the season changes, we want to take the time to thoughtfully clean your home and closet. And it can be joyful, it can be healthy, and also completed in an environmentally friendly way. And I'd just let you know that spring in Montana is different than many areas of the country. We got 2 feet of snow last weekend, so it doesn't quite feel like spring here, but eventually it will come. Here are the 5 things for you to be thinking about. Is first, big picture, just look at what you have to tackle. And I recommend tackling one thing at a time. Then what you're going to do is think about greening or cleaning. Try to make thoughtful choices that are greener choices. Try to avoid the landfill. A lot when we're decluttering, when we're cleaning, when we're getting rid of clothes, immediately goes into the landfill. So try to be mindful of that. A lot of times you can't help it, but if you can reuse or recycle, put that top of mind, and then celebrate and look ahead. So here's what you want to do with respect to cleaning in particularly. You want to generally avoid oven cleaners. These are usually one of the most toxic things that you find in the grocery store. You can use baking soda and a baking soda paste as a way to clean your oven. You also want to avoid nonstick pans. These pans are generally treated with forever chemicals or perfluorinated chemicals, which many of you have probably read newspapers reports about, that have been tied to cancer, to heart disease, as well as issues with hormone disruption, and are of real concern. There's also, and use cast iron. Cast iron is a great way for you to get the iron that you need, but also is a great replacement for nonstick pans. You also want to try to become a label reader if you can, and that is to avoid quaternary ammonium compounds. These are mostly in fabric softeners and air fresheners. A lot of times they're called quats in the environmental world, and these can trigger asthma. Also, try to avoid just the general term fragrance that's listed on the back of cleaners. These usually means that they contain phthalates, which is a binder chemical, and phthalates have been associated with hormone disruption as well. And fragrance, of course, can trigger allergies. Also, avoid dryer sheets. These are usually treated with benzene and acetaldehyde that are carcinogens and can also trigger asthma and allergies as well. Next slide. Now, here's some lingering things to consider. Baking soda and vinegar and lemon. This is something that my grandmother did all the time. And actually, there's some great recipes online. We'll put some in the comments of this YouTube for you to check out. But baking soda and vinegar can do great things. You obviously want to avoid having any type of ammonium and bleach together when you're cleaning. But baking soda and vinegar are great ways for you to clean. Baking soda can be that paste to clean your sink. Vinegar can be used as a mild disinfectant and also glass cleaner. And then lemon is a great way to naturally freshen the air. You want to try to choose green cleaners when you can, but look at the label and try to skip the fragrance, especially if they use the general word fragrance. With respect to dryer sheets, I recommend wool dryer balls. They're actually not very expensive on Amazon, and they do make your laundry pretty fluffy. You might also want to consider Castile soap. It's a great way to use everything from laundry to shampoo to cleaning. It's a great kind of all-in-one type of cleaner. Think about green laundry detergents with less packaging. We know that there's a plastic pollution issue that's unbelievable and affects our oceans. So think about paper. We're seeing more and more innovations with paper packaging and refillable laundry detergent as well. Open a window when you're cleaning too, and here's some great resources for you to look out for to identify specific brands that you can use. Made Safe, the Center for Environmental Health, Environmental Working Group, and Consumer Reports are all great resources to identify the brands that will connect with you. Next slide, please. Decluttering. Oh, wow. I highly recommend setting a timer because it can easily get overwhelming if you take on too much, but set a timer. Look at old toys if you have kids. Check out the junk drawer. We all have one. Old clothes that don't fit, clothes that need repair, clothes that are out of style. Think about furniture that you don't use very much. With paper, I know for me as a writer and a lawyer, paper is a big challenge for me. I try to set a timer and go through my paper to shred, recycle, or digitize if I need to file it. When it comes to gifts, strongly consider regifting things. It's okay. People understand. And you always hear someone's trash is another man's treasure. Think about how you can regift responsibly. And another great idea when it comes to gifts is to try to embrace the adventurer philosophy. Experiences, not things. So when it's time for someone's birthday, maybe you want to get them a gift certificate to a favorite restaurant, or go on a hike together, or decide that you're going to listen to a book on tape together, or go see a play, but do something active and embrace that adventurer philosophy. One of the things to be mindful of is as you're donating is to really research and try to make sure that the items are not going to the landfill, because more and more we're seeing that these organizations, whether it be the Salvation Army or whether it be different shelters, are receiving so many donations. They too are buried in stuff, and a lot of the materials go to the landfill. Next slide, please. Fast fashion, we're going to make that transition now. So according to the World Bank, 10% of all global carbon emissions come from the fashion industry. And over the past 20 years, people buy an average of 60% more clothing. It used to be that we had 3 to 4 different seasons, and now it's up to 60 different seasons that designers are putting out fast, cheap lines of clothing that are going out. And so fast fashion revolves around these ultra cheap clothes that are only worn a few times and that quickly go out of fashion because we're into another season. And nearly 90% of fashion fiber ends up in landfills. And most of those landfills are actually exported and they're in the global south. Next slide, please. So that's why we want to be mindful of our fashion choices. And here are some great ways to avoid fast fashion. First, buying less or nothing. You know, I challenge you to think about like the month of April, not buying clothing. For me, that's not a really big deal. I do a lot of uniform dressing, as if you've been watching these videos or workshops, you can probably tell what my uniform is. But try that. Consigning clothes, there's all kinds of great startups and interesting companies out there. Poshmark, ThredUp, wonderful thrift stores in different neighborhoods. Sharing with friends, a neat activity to think about is a girls' night out, where you actually do a potluck at a friend's house, but also bring clothes that are great, but they're just not fitting for you anymore, or you don't like them anymore, as a great way to swap clothing and connect with each other. Consider renting clothes for a big event. Rent the Runway, Gwenny B. Not only do they have this opportunity where, you know, if you're only going to wear a dress once, you return it and you just pay a fraction of the cost to wear it. But they also report their carbon footprint and the amount of energy that it takes to ship things back and forth. It's still a very great sustainable option. Research again where you're going to donate clothes, as I mentioned, because of the landfill issue. Invest in organic brands if you're going to make the purchase. These are brands that don't have chemical treatment on them, like phthalates or flame retardants. There's some great certifiers there, including Cradle to Cradle and also Blue Sign and Made Safe, that are able to tell you what brands don't treat their clothing with toxic chemicals. Next slide, please. So what now? We encourage you to engage in your daily practice of sustainability, your hashtag One Green Thing. Please share it on social. Take the awesome Ancestor Pledge that's available from our homepage. Check out my TED Talk if you could, and please get involved. Next slide, please. Our next workshop is Tuesday, April 18th, where we're going to do a deep dive on Earth Day, kind of how it got started. Let's honor the past, the present, and really look to the future. So please join us for that workshop on April 18th. And next slide. And finally, please follow and share. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. We're excited to have you be part of our community.